Over the past 25 years or so, a lot has changed in the theme and amusement park industry, where amusement park giants like Cedar Point kept improving their already impressive lineup, while some parks had a misstep where eventually after substantial investments moved into greatness. However, when I think of one single park that has been most improved over that time span, my former home park of Carowinds takes the crown for the most improvement in my opinion. Today we'll be reviewing what improvements have been made since the Paramount days, as well as what the park can keep improving on in the future. Carowinds has been open since 1973 as a park inspired by the design of Disneyland. Not long after opening, due to the 1973 oil crisis, the park was purchased by the Taft Broadcasting Company, which had just opened up Kings Island a few years earlier and opened up Kings Dominion that same year, adding additional classic attractions such as Thunder Road and Carolina Cyclone. In 1992, all parks under the Taft Broadcasting Company were purchased by Paramount Parks, which at this stage the park added a ton of smaller additions to fill up the park's lineup. However, Paramount did add two major attractions with Nighthawk and Top Gun the Jet Coaster. Finally, in 2006, Cedar Fair purchased all Paramount parks, which is where Carowinds begins to look a lot more like the polished park it is today, adding Intimidator, Fury 325, Copperhead Strike, and adding a ton of improvements to multiple areas to give the park a much nicer feel that the park is known for today. What sets Carowinds apart from any other major amusement park in the US is that the North and South Carolina state line runs directly through the middle of the park, where several coasters will cross the state line throughout their layout. Overall, the park is pretty small, which makes getting from one end of the park to the other very easy. A few attractions do require lockers for backpacks, those being Fury 325 and Copperhead Strike. Just like any park, the most important aspect is the attractions. Carowinds has some big heavy hitters in its relatively small layout. With Nighthawk now gone, which we'll get into its missing footprint in a minute, I suggest you head to the reason almost anyone travels to Carowinds in the first place, Fury 325. Let's cut to the chase. Fury absolutely deserves its Golden Ticket Award for the best steel coaster it has been getting every year since 2016. Fury is B&M's magnum opus and is one of 4 roller coasters I've been on that I would consider perfect. The first drop literally can't get any bigger, as this is the largest in the world, only using a chain lift. But size isn't the only reason why Fury is a perfect 10 out of 10. The blazing fast layout along with the high-speed transitions that give you airtime on the outer seats makes it so I cannot get enough of the best Giga Coaster on the planet. Keeping its high speed low to the ground was such a wonderful choice, as Fury isn't as focused on airtime as their B&M Hypers are. However, when Fury does attempt to give you those addictive negative Gs, each airtime hill is filled with ejector airtime near the front of the train and strong floater in the back. I cannot get enough of this ride, which thankfully, due to its high output per hour, the line for Fury almost never gets very long unless the park is packed, which thankfully most weekdays you can spend lapping the best steel coaster on the planet over and over again. From this point on, it doesn't really matter what you hit up next, as the park is easy to navigate due to its relatively small size. Personally, I'm heading to the second best coaster in the park, Copperhead Strike. This thing was shocking to get onto in my first stride in 2024, where I was expecting a good ride, but was floored when it became my personal favorite inversion-based roller coaster I have ever been on. The illegal moonshining theming is a blast, giving an extra set of charm I would typically not expect at a legacy Cedar Fair park. Right off the bat, you get an inversion that you might not see coming if you're in the back of the train. You enter a show building with a quick but fun pre-show and get a launch into a vertical loop, giving you a few seconds of outstanding hang time. You hit a few pops of ejector airtime, which is sprinkled throughout the course along the many moments of hang time. Copperhead Strike is an outstanding addition to Carowinds, filling in their hole of needing a launch coaster. I really hope Mock Rides delivers more of these amazing and fun-filled layouts through the other parks throughout the chain. The oldest of the 4 major coasters found at Carowinds is truly a hidden gem, especially compared to the much bigger versions out there, Afterburn. Originally opened as Top Gun the Jet Coaster in the Paramount days, Afterburn is a rapid-fire, extremely paced B&M invert. While short in duration, it managed to squeeze in 6 very intense inversions in a relatively small footprint. The Batwing in particular is one of the most intense inversions you will find anywhere. This coaster also manages to keep incredibly close to the nearby trees, where you truly feel like a daring fighter pilot pulling off crazy maneuvers in an F-14. Afterburn is a coaster you can lap over and over again, thanks to its relatively short duration not being too taxing on the body. The final of Carowinds' Big Four is the first big investment after Cedar Fair took over Thunder Striker, formerly known as Intimidator. Back when Carowinds was my home park in 2010, I was shocked to learn that the park was getting a massive B&M hypercoaster in the at time pretty mediocre park. Of course, just 5 years later, it would be getting something that literally overshadows it, but Thunder Striker is still a fantastic ride, filled with tons of great floater airtime. Standing at an impressive 232 feet tall, while there are a few more trims along the layout than I would prefer, Thunder Striker still delivers with fantastic airtime on its larger hills in the first half of the layout. Still glass smooth 15 years later, while Fury 325 steals the spotlight of Carowinds, I strongly encourage getting multiple laps on this excellent B&M hyper. While Carowinds is best known for the 4 roller coasters I just mentioned, there are a few other noteworthy coasters in the park. Carolina Cyclone is a fun classic aero looper, which was the first roller coaster to open with 4 inversions. While not smooth, in my opinion runs a little better than some similar coasters like Corkscrew at Cedar Point. The park's original coaster, Carolina Gold Rusher, is a classic mine train that tends to dive into trenches, and far from a must-do in the park, always was one I enjoyed more than some of the much larger coasters in the park. In terms of flat rides, Windseeker delivers a fantastic view of the park along with downtown Charlotte in the distance. Aeronautical Landing is filmed with many modern flat rides such as the Zamperla Nebula, Air Racers, and a few classic county fair rides you can find in their appropriately named county fair section. Carowinds does have a water park attached to the dry park named Carolina Harbor. In this review, since I'm not a huge water park goer, I won't go into too much detail. Overall, it seems to be a typical water park, nothing too extraordinary, but overall a nice addition that is included into park admission and easily accessible from the main park. While as strong as the top 4 coasters in the park are, there is a lot of dead weight in the park. Vortex and Hurler are well past their service life, taking up valuable land that could be used for much more modern roller coasters. Nighthawk was a fun ride, but was plagued by extremely low capacity. While I missed the ride experience, I do think it was the right decision to remove the attraction in favor of a much better high capacity attraction in the coming years. Over the years, the dry park has also closed every single water ride, but that is changing very soon, where it is expected that Carowinds will be unveiling a massive state-of-the-art log flume for the 2026 season in the coming months. Carowinds has come a long way in the past 25 years, not only by adding some world-class attractions and making multiple areas of the park presented much nicer than in the past, but like every single Cedar Fair park, the food is greatly improved over the stereotypical basic and expensive theme park foods of the past. You can still get your basic burgers and chicken tenders if that's your thing. However, several restaurants have been added to the park to give you value for, let's face it, the expensive amusement park food prices. Harmony Hall near Thunder Striker has solid barbecue and provides some great indoor seating. Blue Ridge Country Kitchen near Copperhead Strike also has similar offerings of barbecue. However, I seem to enjoy a little bit more than Harmony Hall's offerings. For third-party offerings in the park, Chicky and Pete's has delicious Old Bay seasoned fries as well as a Philly cheesesteak covered in gooey cheese. And you can't go wrong with Panda Express. Overall, Carowinds has solid food options. Nothing to knock your socks off, but I personally enjoyed everything I had. Planning out an amusement park trip, you always want to know how much time to allocate visiting a park. Carowinds is pretty small, but filled with tons of attractions inside. During the summer, the park is open during typical park hours, opening around 10 a.m. and closing around 9 or 10 p.m. So you have tons of time on a typical day to get everything done. Like all legacy Cedar Fair parks, Carowinds does offer a quick queue system, Fast Lane. However, I personally found that unless it's a busy weekend or some convention is going on in the Charlotte area, you do not need to spend the extra amount to get everything done in the timely manner. Most weekdays in the middle of the summer are quiet, especially if you have a lot of people spending their time in the water park, where in the dry park you can find zero wait for heavy hitters like Fury later in the day. You can easily get everything done at Carowinds in a single day, assuming it's not too busy in the park that day. One final touch point to go over before giving out final scores is how much a trip to Carowinds is going to cost you. Carowinds has a pretty typical rate for a single day ticket. $80 at the gate, but in reality, you're a sucker if you buy the ticket at the gate. If you buy your ticket online, you can get a single day ticket as low as $40 midweek in the early season, but as high as $55 for Saturdays. Season passes are pretty affordable as well, with the Silver Pass, which just gives park admission from opening day in March to Labor Day for $99. A Gold Pass is $125, which gives admission throughout the entire year. Finally, the Prestige Pass, which includes a single-use fast lane per visit, access to their VIP lounge, and a few other perks, is a lot more at $299. However, I find that the Gold Pass is the best value and more than enough for what you need. One final note on season passes is the prices I included, which are what you would find before Memorial Day. The passes are even cheaper the earlier in the season you purchase them, typically starting in August the year earlier. Food prices are typical of what you find in an amusement park, around $19 per meal. However, it is noted that the meal plan is an excellent deal, costing $31.99, which you can get a meal every 90 minutes. Parking is standard at $30, but of course if you have a season pass, you don't need to worry about that. Finally, we go into fast lanes, which like I mentioned before, you likely won't need to use one for your day in the park. However, on days such as Saturdays or holiday weekends, it might be worth considering buying if the park is busy that day. Fast lanes start at $75. However, these are on days you're very likely to be wasting your money due to light crowds. A typical Saturday or a holiday runs at $109. So, if you're unable to plan your trip avoiding a busy weekend, you may want to consider purchasing a fast lane. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Areas I think for improvement and overall scores for Carowinds. Roller Coaster Rundown is a weighted average of scores, where attractions get 40%, operations are 20%, park presentation is 15%, food also gets 15%, and overall value gets 10%, combining all together to give a final score. Carowinds is filled with many incredible attractions, from Afterburn, Thunder Striker, Copperhead Strike, and of course the Golden Ticket Award winner for Best Steel Coaster, Fury 325. All four of these coasters are worthy of the cost of admission alone. However, one of the largest criticisms of Carowinds is how top-heavy the park's coaster lineup is. Anything past these four are a very large drop-off in quality in comparison. There are a few fun flat rides and some decent coasters, but most are not worth doing more than once. However, I do not find this to be a fatal flaw, as like much smaller parks like Holiday World and Knoebels, these parks only have a few A and S tier coasters, but it makes getting laps on them through the day easier, having less to focus on elsewhere in the park. Nevertheless, this is something that Carowinds is improving slowly over time, with taking out the old outdated attractions and installing new and state-of-the-art installations. This is an issue I foresee improving as time goes on. Currently, however, Carowinds will score a high 9.6 out of 10 for its attractions. Park presentation has come a long way in the past 25 years. While still having some areas needing to be improved, the areas of the park Carowinds has revamped has been outstanding. From an amazing looking front entrance added when Fury opened, a well-defined state line as you enter the park, the county fair area adding a nice bit of charm, and Aeronautical Landing paying tribute for North Carolina being the birthplace of aviation. Most old blacktop areas have been improved drastically, and something I expect to see over the coming years. Park presentation gets a solid 9 out of 10. Food is really good, a massive improvement for where it used to be. Cedar Fair hired an executive chef about 10-ish years ago to overlook all their parks, and it really shows. Not quite as good as offering at other parks in the chain such as Cedar Point or Kings Island, but still stands on its own as being well above average park food. Food gets a solid 9 out of 10. Most legacy Cedar Fair parks are operated very well, and Carowinds is no exception. Not as blazing fast as Kings Island's operations, but more than enough to get the job done, especially with the overall lighter crowds. Fury 325 on the other hand seems to have the A-team, where their operations are flying even when only having 2 out of their 3 trains running. Carowinds gets a respectable 9.2 out of 10 in operations. Finally, we get to value, where Carowinds shines high due to a relatively low cost of tickets between $40 and $55, and very reasonable season pass prices starting at $99. Food is about what you would expect at around $20 per entree. However, the meal plan brings that cost down to $15.99, assuming you're only using it twice, which, in reality, if you're using it correctly, you can bring it down way more than that. Value gets a strong 9.2 out of 10. With that final note, Carowinds gets a roller coaster rundown of 9.3 out of 10, currently ranked number 12 of the 35 parks I've been to. Carowinds has come a long way over the years, and especially since the turn of the millennium. With Six Flags headquarters located in Charlotte, it is hard to imagine this park won't continue to get the investments it has been getting since 2010. I foresee a bright future for Carowinds, but in the meantime, the park is well worth a visit to the Carolinas for one of the best roller coasters ever built, along with its other amazing attractions and offerings. Well, what do you think? Comment down below if you agree, disagree, or maybe there's some things I missed in my review. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to Park Productions to find more fun reviews, vlogs, and ranking videos throughout the theme and amusement park industry. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.